Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, desolate, serfs, peasants, vassals, Israelis, Syrians. I'm a useful idiot, and today I want to talk about the fact that Israel has fired another missile into Syria. And even though this is a continuation of sort of a tit-for-tat border skirmishes that are happening all over that region in every country that borders Syria, this is getting more interesting for a couple of reasons. And this time it's a direct hit of a guided missile from Israel that destroyed an outpost, a Syrian military outpost. So this is a defined Israeli military action on Syrian military actions. That's one thing that makes this different. And another thing is the fact that supposedly it isn't really clear where the shots came from. And the fact that Israel would single out Syrians on this border post is questionable reasoning for a number of reasons, because anything can happen in that border region. And so for governments and militaries to take these kind of actions that are so provocative and so loaded with potential to backfire and cause things to escalate, it seems like one would be more careful. For example, Syrians in a military outpost on the border with Israel being careless enough to fire into Israeli vehicles or Israeli soldiers seems unlikely, and seems like Syrian rebels would also not be involved in wanting to provocate Israeli soldiers, and then also all the other scenarios of bringing Israel in on a larger scale. And that's the big picture here for me, is the fact that the United States and Israel and any number of players in this scenario are just looking for an excuse to escalate this conflict. And that's why every little event that happens like this, we need to keep our eyes open for, because oftentimes it doesn't take much to get an excuse. In Israel's case, for example, they already have a plan laid out, as I explained in an earlier video, to invade the border region of Syria and create a buffer zone. And the United States and Israel, of course, would look for any opportunity to get involved in this conflict too, and take care of Assad much more quickly, because this has gone on for much too long, and this Assad regime has to go. And one way or another, it will. I guarantee it. So anyway, this border incursion. And another interesting aspect of this to me is a quote from the Israeli defense minister, who said, quote, "The Syrian regime is responsible for every breach of sovereignty. We will not allow the Syrian army or any other groups to violate Israel's sovereignty in any way," unquote. Which is a pretty audacious statement from a military and a government that has violated the sovereignty of nearly every country in that region at some point or another. And but we're used to that kind of hypocrisy. A good example of that is the fact that Israel captured the Golan Heights, and that's where this incident occurred in Israeli-occupied Syria, the Golan Heights, that they occupied since the 1967 war. And like the land that they took from Egypt, there's no international recognition that they have the right to that land, and yet it's part of Israel now as occupied territory, and it will remain so. I guarantee Israel will never give up the Golan Heights. It doesn't matter if a new Syria rises from the ashes of Assad regime and is even remotely pro-Israel. Israel will never give up the Golan Heights. And there's indications that the Syrian opposition has mentioned the fact that they think maybe the Golan Heights should go back to Syria when this conflict is over. But I don't think that's going to happen. And in fact, Israel has warned them on numerous occasions as they've occupied towns in the Golan Heights. The Syrian rebels have occupied towns in the Golan Heights of Syria, and Israel's warned them that they should not have any designs on the rest of the Golan Heights as the war drags on. So anyway, there's a heads up on that, and overall, I think this is just what happens in war zones, and all these countries are a little trigger happy, and there'll be border clashes until this thing plays out. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.